do it if they're a plumber. So they had a lot of simulated stuff, and just looking at ours across the board and not knocking it, but I'm on the board there now and started a whole committee of all the people from Haskell and people at Voc Rehabs, half the people. So I started an interest group. So we meet quarterly and talk about how can we fill the gap, how can we do Voc Rehab better, and how can we catch people that fall through the gaps. So this has been really good to have these numbers and then to do research and try to get the personnel and the things we need in place so that we can go with the people out in the community and be with them. They have job coaches at our Voc Rehabs, just not as many. And so the UK, they're doing it. They're going to wherever the person's going to be doing the job, and they're with them, and they're doing the actual job until they get better. But one thing about Voc Rehab, it's not specific to TBI. So it's, across the board. So that's the difference, and that's why the Weston Co-op is so important. I mean, we are just TBI. So we are focused specifically on TBI and returning that person with TBI back to work. Assessment, placement, that's just telling you what's available. Clubhouse, this is just different programs for ABIs, the Clubhouse model, the sheltered workshop model, and community-based vocational, that's the Voc Rehabs here. So the co-op, when I'm looking at the model of this program that I'm developing with my boss and several others in the building, we're really all of those. We're really a clubhouse. We are a place for people don't want to leave the co-op. I'm like, no, this is just so we can get you to real work. And they're like, no, but so some of them stay and they really work for us and become a hospital employee. And they're like, if that's their niche, then that's what they do. Or some volunteers. So we have volunteer patients and staff, all that are head injured. So it is kind of like a clubhouse coming together and working. Even the patients that are in the building at the time, they're just there 12 weeks, it's still got that clubhouse mentality of belonging to. So sheltered workshop, we don't have a lot of piecemeal stuff. That's more of a piecemeal kind of, we have sheltered workshop and you're doing the same thing over and over. Sometimes we have that when I have an order for all the employees, we have a name badge and we have 20,000 name badges and we got to separate them into departments and boxes. Then we need like all hands on deck. Everybody in the building needs to come and help do this crazy, huge project. And so it's really fun when we do tasks like that. So yeah, there's just very few therapeutic work programs, and that's really what this is. So here's a guy, this was my patient with the blue shirt, and he became the expert at making Byzantine, this chain that's on this wrist. And so he became the expert. Now he's teaching this patient, and they didn't call each other and stay wearing the same shirt, but that's just what happened. I was like, I was like, that's cool. But yeah, so he became the expert, and he's teaching him. Very cool, very cool. So you think about the purpose it gives him to be in that role. Think about how much healing that helps this guy, who used to work for the Postal Service, who attention to detail has become extremely hard because of his stroke, he's sitting here teaching someone else how to do something. Can you see how healing that could be? How powerful that could be? Putting somebody in that role. All right. So different rationale. So we have the social engagement, we have leisure, we have purposeful work. It's just a combination of all of those going on at one time. So it's a multidisciplinary, so we got OT, physical therapy, speech, psychology, recreation, and it's collaborative. And these are the big words right now. Multidisciplinary is huge. Watch video. Okay, that means I got the video up next. Oh yeah. So this is cool. So this is just how it works. So we've got an OT in here. I'll just play it. Oh, let me play it. Let me get back. See if it. All right. See if it. There it goes. Okay, so we got speech, OT, physical therapy, and so I go grab the social. I go grab some cards, and we start doing like a social. Like, let's let these patients talk to one another. So literally, this guy over here has a head injury, and he thinks he wants a tattoo of an Egyptian eye on his belly, like this big. So I ask questions like, do you have anything you regret? And this guy says, yes, I regret the tattoo on my wrist. And so we're having this conversation during this session. So I purposely asked that question on the card because this guy got a rebel flag right before the shooting down in Charleston. And his grandma begged him not to do it, but he did it. And then 3 days later, the shooting happened. So he's talking about that to him, like, hey man, you hold off on that Egyptian eye idea. My therapist told me not to get this too. They said wait a year, and then if you still want the tattoo, don't do anything after your head injury. And so he had to go and do a cover up. So now it's like a muddy deer with it's just crazy. It's nuts. It is nuts. So he's like, yeah, I've got regret on something. And so it was a great opportunity for him to share with him, don't do it, man. And then the little guy that was working over here has Asperger's, and I think it's not that now. What's it called now? The spectrum, the autism on the spectrum. He's still on the spectrum, but his social skills were poorer than even our average. That's something that happens with head injury. But he, we use it as a social coaching opportunity for him. Here's a big group, and he goes, yeah, I regret, looking at pornography. And he says this out loud, everybody's in the group, and all the other guys turn and look at him. And then so it was a good coachable moment for his therapist to say, hey, that might be a good thing for you to talk about with an individual. You might not want to say that in the group. So, it was a good opportunity for coaching. So, yeah, it's a good setting it's a safe place to mess up, and it's a good social coaching setting that's real world for social skills and interacting with other people. So it's a fantastic just a culture that's set up perfect for real world interactions. All right, we'll go to the next one, I think. There we go. All right, so that's the theory behind it. Y'all have to learn theory here?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right.
Did you hear the enthusiasm for that?
So like I'm all about. As soon as I got into school, as soon as I saw Moho, I was a whole lot more energetic than that. I was like, that's it. It's Moho. That's what Weston Co-op is. This is so cool. Just the human occupation. Moho is like the perfect theory set up. But then I started digging deeper, and I was like, wow. It's a lot of these theories really blended together.
Yeah.
And I was like, it really isn't just Moho. The person, the task, the environment, and it's almost like it's different for every patient. Every single patient, it's almost like we're using a different theory. And so very important for us to know our theories and know where you're coming from. And it's fantastic when you see it and you're like, oh, this makes sense. This is how it works. Knowing the performance capacities, which are important during rehabilitation as well as in the work settings, environment, how it influences their performance. It's amazing. So, like this guy in the picture, he wanted to go back to working on lawnmowers, and so we laid on our backs for 3 hours, y'all, without getting up, because that's what he does during the day. So we took all the belts off that. We had to find out. He thought he was just going to go back to work full time, so this was educational for him. He had a stroke. He couldn't do torque with his right arm, and so we had to get a power tool. So we just got our compressor and put the gun on it, and then he could. I was like, "You got one of these in your shop, don't you?" And he said, "Yeah." So you'll just have to use that to get bolts off now, but that's okay. You can do that. He wanted to see if he could lay down for 3 hours, but he got cognitively fatigued. We took all the belts off, which is the simplest thing on a lawnmower. And there's a spring missing, so I let him problem solve and figure out what we had to fix. So he was able to fix it, 3 hours later though, he couldn't put the belts back on. And that's the simplest thing. The diagram's on the actual lawnmower. And so he was so cognitively fatigued, he couldn't even follow the diagram and get the belts on. We're talking about put it over the blades and you bring it up to the top. And so literally, it was a great, it was educational. He was like, wow. I was like, it's okay, just work on your lawnmowers part-time right now. Just work for, 2.5, 3 hours and just sit and do your paper invoices or whatever, or take a break and do that the next morning. But either way, just don't work on somebody's lawnmower, post 3 hours, because, you might mess them up. And so that was fine, and then we went to his place and found out he couldn't really get down on the ground real easy, so we just had to put one handle on the pole in the middle so he could get down to his rolling board, and roll up under him. So it was just a few things we changed, but made it possible for him to do part-time. Now he's back to full-time doing it. It was at his house, his own business, but that's what he wanted to do. So the environment was important for successful occupation for him. Situated cognition. So I don't know if y'all do Winger or Lave, any of these folks, but that whole idea of
Not there yet.
yeah, okay, all right. So knowledge needs to be presented in authentic context. So social interaction and collaboration are essential components of situated learning. So it's just saying, the real thing is really good for learning. If you're helping somebody bathe, it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're in the real situation, then obviously it's just gonna be good, and let them become the expert. And like we talked about it earlier, hand over hand, you might have their hand on their hand while they're washing their face, and then you may not, then you're taken away until they get become the expert at washing their face or making a jewelry or screen print a shirt, whatever it is. All right. So this is just some of the core tenets of the West End Co-op. So just coaching within a real world, generalizing from a clinic setting to a community is just made easier. The tools used for tasks are familiar to the client. The patient-directed occupational base. Let you read some of those, but I think it's the lady at the beginning of this. Let me see if I can. I'm just gonna make y'all go backwards. Sorry. Yeah, this lady on the left. So, see that she's a school teacher, and the speech therapist couldn't get her to generalize information. She gives her a piece of paper and says, follow these instructions, and she can't do it. She can't generalize the information on there, and so the speech therapist comes back to the co-op and says, hey, can she do something back here at the co-op? She's a science teacher, and she can't generalize information. And so can we use a real world option to do that? I said, well, yeah, let's find something that's new learning for her. That her brain's injured. Let's find something that's totally new so that she'll have to generalize information as she learns it. And so I was like, what do you want to do out of all this stuff? She goes, oh, I want to build a table, because her and her husband build a new house, and I want to build a table that on casters I can have on the back porch, and it hold wine glasses on the side of it. I mean, she made this thing really, really nice, tight. But day one, she comes in, and she don't know how to use a drill. She's never used a drill. So this is made out of pallet wood, and so she has to drill a hole, literally, drill a pilot hole, that's what you call it, in order to get a screw in the wood, because the wood is so hard. And so day one, I'm her frontal lobe. I'm gonna give her day one. I'll just be her frontal lobe for her. And so she's drilling. She drills the hole. It won't come out. I was like, flip the switch. And so she flips the switch, and she can take the drill out because it's so tight. You get it. And so flip the switch. It's not coming out, and she's not getting it. And so day two, I'm pulling out. I'm not gonna be her frontal lobe. She's drilling those same pilot holes. And she's like, it's not coming out. And I'm waiting. I'm doing that wait that we talked about, not say anything. So it took her a few minutes. She was like, did I just flip the switch? I'm like, yeah, that's it. And so she flips the switch a few minutes later, and then she's got it. And so her frontal lobe figured it out. So yeah, and so how this carried over throughout the whole project. And then she gets to the bottom casters, and she's got to drill a bigger hole. And so she had to generalize. She was like, she's never used the giant drill bit, but it took her about 2 or 3 minutes to go, oh, I need a bigger drill bit. I'm like, very cool. So her frontal lobe figured that out. I could have told her, but then the neurological path wouldn't have happened in her frontal lobe. So me pulling out not being it. So she goes and gets bigger drill bit, and bigger drill bit won't go in, and because it's too big. And so I was like, you've never done what you're about to do before, but it's in your brain. This is how you generalize, and I could tell you and make this go so much faster, but that doesn't benefit you. So it was 9 excruciating minutes for me. But I waited until her, and she figured it out. I mean, you would have thought, like, she just gave birth to a baby. I reacted so crazy, because she's like, can I drill a pilot hole for a pilot hole? I'm like, yes, that's it! That is it! Oh my gosh, you just generalized really, really big. And that's what we're trying to do with the head injury people. And I'm like, that's so awesome. But what happens with this over and over, it just cascades. So these folks that are doing these projects, this guy on the right who used to build guitars, very detailed. This was a crazy hard project for him. But they are generalizing information, and they go home, and they're doing it at home with their medicine kit. They're doing it with cooking. They're doing it with their bathing. They're doing it with the setup and sequencing. It's just a cascade of them doing it because their brain is using it. And so I don't have to do that much as a therapist. The project actually becomes the therapist because it's doing a lot of work for me and helping them generalize. So it's exciting stuff. Exciting stuff. I just cried. I mean, you would have thought she gave birth to a baby. I was so excited.